I call to order the April 29th special meeting of the Whittier City Council at 6:05 PM. I'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
One nation, God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Before we begin tonight's meeting, please note digital copies of the packet are available on our website. A QR code is provided. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Shen.
Here.
Mr. Wagner.
Here.
Mr. McAlto.
Here.
Mr. Pinkush.
Here.
Mr. Denmark. Mr. Dickinson.
Here.
Mr. Mayor.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Citizen comments on any agenda item except those scheduled for public hearing are welcome at this time. Those who have signed in will be given the first opportunity to speak. Please note, this is not a time for dialogue. It is a time for you to speak and the council to listen. Madam Clerk, is anyone signed in for the citizen comments?
Yes. Travis Brazelton.
Congratulations on possibly the most progressive idea on voter changes that I've seen in the last 6 years since I tried to get 16-year-olds to write the vote. I think it's a fantastic idea. I've only got a couple problems with the way it's being done. I'm not positive that it should be done on a local level. It's going to have unintended consequences, not immediately, but down the line, if laws don't change elsewhere. A kid that's 10 years old, grows up here, votes, then decides he's going to live in Anchorage. They've always got to vote in the local elections here. They don't know any better. And they go and vote in Anchorage. Now they're in trouble. That's one problem. And I have offered assistance with my contacts at the ACLU to help them develop the rights to vote. They've got a fast track on getting to vote for state, local, federal elections. All they have to do is live here for 3 months and fill out a form. Now, I don't know if there's money involved or whatever. I'm sure it's a $25 fee or something silly. But it's not like immigrants or anything like that. It happens rather quickly for them. And it probably should be the way it should be done. That way we don't have to worry about, okay, we need special ballots for them. We need, and to make sure that they're not voting in the state and the federal level, that they're only voting on the local level. Whereas if they do what is required and fill out that N400 form, there is no special ballots. They get to vote in everything, federal, state, and local. I'm just concerned about the unintended consequences of passing that measure or whatever it's called here in Alaska. That's it.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
No one else has signed in.
Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak? Hearing none or seeing none? I'd ask for a motion for approval of tonight's agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Any discussion? Hearing none?
Voting on the motion to approve the special meeting agenda. Mr. Wagner,
Yes.
Mr. Denmark,
Yes.
Mr. Shen,
Yes.
Mr. McAlto,
Yes.
Mr. Pinkush,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
The motion passes and the special meeting agenda is approved.
Okay. So I'd ask for a motion to, for resolution 2025-020.
Move to adopt.
I'll second.
Mr. Mayor, I apologize for the oversight in your script. Wait, they're not working? Oh, man.
Check. Hello. Mic check. How about now?
Okay, I apologize, Mr. Mayor, for the oversight in your script. This part of the meeting agenda has us playing the presentation by the president.
David just pointed that out to me.
Okay,
but you.
excellent.
I was going a little fast there.
I will just need one moment to pull it up.
Thank you. So I think this is a great opportunity to have a small community council to synchronize with the President of the United States in recognizing American Samoans, and in regards to this resolution, giving our support. So, Madam Clerk, I believe that we had a second on this.
Was that Mr. Denmark that made the motion and, sorry, who seconded?
Might have been
Mr. McAlto, was that you who seconded the motion? No.
I'll second it. Nobody did.
Okay. So Mr. Denmark made the motion and Mr. Pinkush seconds.
So this resolution is on the table. I got a couple of amendments to make or request or motions. On line 85 through line 92, I'd ask for a motion to strike lines 85 through 92.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Can I ask why we want to strike this?
Yes. It's essentially a component of an amendment to the Alaska Constitution, or actually Alaska state statute. And it implies wrongdoing that prior to the American Samoan individuals involved being arraigned. So I don't think it's appropriate for us to ask for minimal punishment permissible.
I noticed that as well. Do you need to strike the whole clause or just take out that half a sentence? Yes, I noticed that as well. Is it necessary to abandon the whole clause or just remove the half of a sentence?
Well, it's there's terminology issues with it. I mean, prior to that sentence, it says citizens of the American Samoa. They're American Samoa. It's
So it could,
American Samoa is U.S. national,
I understand.
but it's saying citizens,
Okay, so
and then they are not considered citizens.
they're not, all you got to install there is considered United States. That all you would have to install there is that after considered is to add United States citizens to make the distinction.
Mayor, I do think that's an accurate statement because they are citizens. All this statement is saying is citizens of the American Samoa are not considered citizens for purposes. So you can say, I think what Councilmember Denmark is saying is you can say are not considered United States citizens for voting purposes. So it's limiting it to the extent. I mean, I think you're welcome to strike this. I don't, and I don't know that you can bifurcate it and essentially say the same thing, because one of the things that we would advise council to be careful where we have conduct that is considered unlawful. And we don't want to, especially as we administer local elections, right, through the clerk's office, we certainly don't want to be suggesting that we're encouraging unlawful conduct. But what you're doing here is saying, to the extent that there was an unintentional participation in an election that was unlawful, you would ask for leniency in any sentencing. So you can say that, or you can take it out to avoid saying it. But what we would not recommend is that you take out the part that emphasizes you're asking for leniencies for unintentional voting that does not comply with the law. If someone intentionally went in and cast a ballot knowing that that was a violation of the election laws, then we would not recommend that council take a position regarding what the consequences of that would be, right? Because we also administer an election and we would expect the laws to be enforced, and wouldn't be asking or taking a position on that aspect. But I think from council's discussions, it sounded to us, one of the things that council was worried about is that both with the automatic registration through the PFD and the unique status, voting status of American Samoans in the community, that there was concern that individuals could, fully intending to comply with the law, cast a ballot, and any violation that would arise from that, the council would be asking for leniency. Does that make sense? So intention matters, I guess, is what I'm saying. Or at least under this provision, the intention matters. Did you cast a ballot because you thought you had a right to vote in that election? Or did you cast a ballot knowing that you did not have a right under law as it stands right now? And that makes a difference for whether the city, which administers the local elections and has requirements under law on how that occurs, that makes a difference. So you might be best striking it if that's a nuance that council is struggling with right now. It might be best to strike the provision.
I think myself, I'm in support. This resolution is in support of our American Samoa Whittier residents. The intention or unintention, that's something that the courts and the attorneys would. I don't want to really have any. I don't want to really get drawn into that because I don't know the specifics, and I don't think it's our. I definitely want to steer clear of that in terms of. I don't think it's any of our jurisdiction.
So if council agrees with you on that, then I think your amendment to strike that provision is a good one, because I think that because I think the city's position as a governing body that administers a local election under the laws of Alaska, including the Constitution and the statute, right? I think that where there's nuance, if you don't want to differentiate between an intention to violate the law versus sort of an inadvertent violation of the law, I think that provision holds less, that provision might be best removed.
This is difficult for me to follow. So if there are other council members that want to weigh in, by golly, just have at it.
No, on the motion for the amendment or the discussion on the
I guess we need to
resolution in
have
general? Motion to
we
amend.
need to have a first and a second, right? Someone,
We have one right now.
we already, so it's on the table for the amendment. Okay, so we're in the discussion part.
Yep, so I'll just, that's, since we're sticking just to that part, I do agree with striking that. It's it's exactly what Holly said. If we don't know if it's intentional or unintentional, so we shouldn't even get into the minimum punishment permissible. I don't think that's appropriate for us, number one. And I kind of, without going completely into the whole thing, I think it would be appropriate for us simply to state that we might have, we were definitely unaware. I was unaware of what an American national was until a month ago. So did we encourage people to vote that weren't allowed to vote, not knowing it? If we did that, we should I think we should let the court know that we may have done that. I mean, I don't know if I would say it, but we were definitely unaware of it years ago. If people think back at who was on the council, so it's been something that we've been unaware of for many, many years. And we want them to be members of communities, but it's not. I think we are getting into the weeds of intentional. If they knew or didn't know, we shouldn't even go there. And that kind of the punishment should be based on the results of what comes out in court, not what we think. But to address simply that, that it is confusing that when you sign up for a dividend check, you automatically have a choice, and then, we definitely encourage people to vote. Council members have, citizens of the community have, and so there's it's definitely very confusing, and it's very unfortunate the way it transpired. But I kind of wonder, I'm not going to get into it much, but I kind of wonder if it's confusing to put the point of wanting to get information of the raid with this together. They kind of glued each other, but I would like to have seen them separated. But anyway, that's my comments. So I support the removal of the section you mentioned.
And please correct me if I'm wrong, but it is my impression that the purpose of this resolution is basically to state the city's support for the state to change via legislation the voting parameters for U.S. nationals versus citizens. I mean, that's the simple point that we're trying to get across, right? Is that?
Yes, and I think one thing to note, so this does not change the way we administer local elections. Your clerk's office is dedicated to complying with the law. That means that when the clerk is, or any elected election official is administering the election, they are looking at whether or not they're on the state register. And in order to, and you're properly registered for that purpose, you need to be a citizen of the United States, 18 years of age or older, and you must have been a resident of the state and of the House district in which the person seeks to vote for at least 30 days just before the election, and has registered before the election as required under state statute. So that nothing is changing. Everything is the same, meaning that if you are if you are a U.S. national from the American Samoa, you do have to go through that process to fill out the form. There's a process to obtain citizenship necessary for voting, right? So that's what it's sort of a, it's a process. It's required. We're not doing anything here today that would change that for local, federal, or state elections. The only thing this resolution does, based on council members' comments and concerns and questions, and based on some of the discussions under the law, and my colleague Richard Moses is available virtually, and he did a lot of research, so we understood exactly what was going on in the cases on the federal and state level, and what you could do so that if there was something that could be done on a local level, that we would be, advising you that opportunity is there for council. In our opinion, it's not there right now. The Constitution and the state statute make it clear. The case law supports and that the interpretation of the language and the Constitution and the state statute that limit voting to U.S. citizens. The proposal here is just to say to the legislature, the city of Whittier supports a change to the Constitution and the statute that would say a person may vote in an election if they are a citizen of the U.S. or its territories. And that's really all this resolution is doing, is saying, hey, we would support this. And so what happens with this resolution after the fact, there's language regarding the distribution of it so that it's seen, but it's no guarantee of a change in voting status, and it does nothing to change the status quo voting status right now.
Thank you.
Do we have any more questions? David?
Not on that subject.
He said not on that subject, Mayor. So this is just on the amendment.
Hearing no further questions?
Voting on the motion to amend Resolution 2025-020 by striking lines 85 through 92. Mr. Denmark.
Yes.
Mr. McAlto.
Yes.
Mr. Wagner.
Yes.
Mr. Pinkush.
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson.
Yes.
Mr. Shen.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
The motion passes, and Resolution 2025-020 is amended by striking lines 85 through lines 92. Returning again to the motion to approve Resolution 2025-020 as amended.
I read this resolution a few times, and I guess I want to put in my personal experience. I come from an immigrant family, and my wife is an immigrant, and I'm familiar with the process of citizenship. And many years ago, my wife decided she wanted to become a voting citizen of the United States, and we made that choice. Or she made that choice, and we went through that process together. All the paperwork, the costs associated with it, the waiting, all the uncertainty surrounding that and stuff. And it's not an easy process. And it's not to be taken lightly either. I think that I support people or improving accessibility to voting and stuff. However, I feel like this resolution just doesn't dig far enough. I guess I'm trying to understand the whole why. Is it just Samoa where the nationals cannot vote?
Because of the treaty.
Yeah, that's a treaty that is, how old is it? Is this treaty? This treaty is over 100 years old, I believe. I think it's like from the 1870s. And I feel that, I don't know, I feel like the approach we're taking may not be the most I just feel like we're not digging in the right place. And I feel like maybe going back, I'd be in support of going back to the drawing board and looking at, instead of looking at the Constitution, changing that on that level, is going back, and I imagine there are ties between here and Samoa, and being in support of amending the treaty support of amending the treaty. I feel like it's something more that would be cleaner. I feel like just putting this out there, I worry about just the outfall of this, especially in a small community. That's it. I guess I think so. I am conflicted about supporting this in this form.
David, you,
Yep, I think you said it exactly right, Victor. I'm conflicted too. It makes no sense to me that this American Samoan can serve in the military, but not vote for the commander in chief. Excuse me. But what I don't know, and maybe your cohort can, why is it different? I mean, there had to be reasons why a Puerto Rican can vote and an American Samoan can't. So America's,
Sovereignty.
so I know, but why is that different?
They
So,
made that choice.
okay, so, but it's, the government made that choice, so that put restrictions on him, and we're asking to undo that restriction without understanding why that was done. Reading on Google, the only thing I really found found by researching it was simply that there were the American Samoan chiefs or whatever president, whatever they have, did not want to give up certain things. And so that restricted their people from being U.S. citizens. It was to prevent, my understanding, it was to prevent American Samoa from being overrun by U.S. citizens. So we're trying to ask that a treaty that was done by the powers that be 100 years ago be changed because of a local group. I kind of think what Victor said, we're on the wrong path. I think what Mr. Brazelton said is perfect. We should be supporting these individuals becoming U.S. citizens any way we can. And I don't think it is $25. I think it's like $800. But I think we're I don't know. I think we're jumping way over what this community can actually affect. I would rather get with the here and now, dealing with potentially a statement that this community was unaware of the differences. So, we definitely weren't, I know for a fact that we were not aware of it. And then pointing out that the permanent fund, that was a huge amount of confusion with it, and that be taken into consideration. And I think it would be great for this community to work toward those that want to become American citizens doing. I think we'd be better off doing that than taking this leap here. I just think I 100% behind, honestly, I 100% behind American Samoans being U.S. citizens, but I think we're taking a really big bite out of an apple when we should be taking a little bite. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I guess I think that helped bring some of my thoughts closer. I think that an application fee is approximately $760. I guess what's that adage? Think globally, act locally. I feel a resolution may be a bit excessive for this, but I do support efforts to help our neighbors here on their path to citizenship. There are organizations that exist that serve this, that pursue this, that help them with the application process, with the overcoming the economic hurdles to this process, the language barriers. I think that's how we can. I think that would be a more wholesome, yes, if that's a good way, lack of a better word of supporting our neighbors here. I think
I'd like to add one more thing that too. If we decided to do some sort of letter to the court, my one thing I would put is not asking for minimal punishment. It would be nothing that the court does would prevent that people from obtaining citizenship. I think that would be a more effective thing for us to pursue.
Renner, do you have something?
Well, I just want to say something on Victor Shen said. First of all, they're not immigrant. You know, they're U.S. territory. They can go anywhere they want. The thing that I don't get is why they can't vote. They get PFDs once they apply, and they get a registration vote.
And my apologies, it wasn't exactly trying to get it. It's not a perfect congruent parallel there, because it's different paths. You know, it is a territory of the United States. Under my saying, I'm not an expert in it, but I understand that over 100 years ago they signed a treaty, and the intent was they wanted to preserve their sovereignty. They wanted to keep their lands. They did not want to be. Basically, they didn't want to be colonized, and they stood up for themselves, and that's great. However, I think, you know, it's over 100 years past that. I would hope that we are past these, you know, tragedies in history.
Victor,
That's
Renner
it.
was
I'm done.
talking.
They pay the same taxes that we do. You know, once they get a job, they basically do it. That's it.
So, Peter?
Just a quick reaction to a recent comment that would kind of plug into the clause that we just removed from the agenda, but was that I would hope that whatever legal action is afoot would not preclude people from gaining their citizenship via any given process. I think that would be an important statement to make. And the purpose of this resolution is to generate action on the state level, be it the legislature or the governor. Not all 50 states have the restriction that Alaska does about American nationals not voting. It is not a federal thing. It is by the states. And this resolution, it's not in the resolution, but in the attorney's synopsis or backup information they gave us. What was it? House Bill 19, HJR 19. Doesn't hit that nail exactly on the head, but if there would be a way to ask for Alaska to reconsider the voting status of territorial nationals, specifically Samoa, to be consistent with some other states.
Mayor, and one thing I will say is that was Councilmember Denmark has an excellent point in that voting for federal elections, right, and federal candidates is different than voting in the state elections and local elections for purposes of, you know, what can and can we not do, or what can the state do and not do. But I do think it might be nice if Richard, it is very interesting, the history, and I think Richard did sort of delve into that quite a bit when looking at the cases, because the cases incorporated in some of the history surrounding the treaty. So if it's useful for council and the public, I think Richard can kind of share his findings. Richard?
Yes, can everybody hear me?
Yes, I think so. Yes.
Okay, great. Good evening, council. Good evening, mayor. My name's Richard Moses. I'm a colleague of Holly Wells at Birch, Horton, Bittner, and Shiro. Generally speaking, yes, the council is correct that American Samoa became a territory of the United States through a treaty in which the ruling chiefs of what is now American Samoa ceded some of their sovereignty to the United States, but not all of it. Similar things happened with other territorial acquisitions throughout our history. And Congress has slowly but surely granted the rights of citizenship versus national status to every territory but for American Samoa. And when a territory is granted citizenship status for its residents, the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution then applies to their laws. There is a significant reason because of that why American Samoa has routinely turned down the opportunity for citizenship for its residents. And that's because if the 14th Amendment were to apply in American Samoa, it would render some of their traditional legal practices and traditional ways of life unconstitutional under the United States Constitution. First and foremost among them would be their land ownership laws where there is racial preference, but that under the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution would be considered discriminatory and would therefore be unconstitutional. Also, the upper house of their territorial legislature is not elected. It is done through ancestry, which of course also under the 14th Amendment would be unconstitutional. And so there are significant reasons that harken back to their traditional way of life in American Samoa, why they have retained status as nationals versus status of citizens.
And so, Richard, I just want to confirm that analysis in large part affects participation in federal elections. States, it may affect, and it may be one of the reasons, and it may have been underlying their current constitution in Alaska and our state statutes, but it's not necessarily the case because that analysis really goes to U.S. citizenship, and U.S. citizenship is required for federal voting as an absolute, arguably. And that's, I think, Richard, would you say that based on the case precedent?
Yes, absolutely. Every U.S. appellate court that has looked at this issue has said that it only affects voting in federal elections, not in state and local elections. States retain their own ability under the U.S. Constitution to regulate their own state and local elections. So at present, it is Alaska law, it is our state constitution and state statutes both that are preventing American Samoan non-citizen nationals from voting in state and local elections here in Alaska. It is not a function of federal law.
So I don't know if that helps. It might make your decisions more complicated, but that should provide at least some information.
Actually, no, it helps, but a question I'd have is, I'm assuming that applying for citizenship, a Samoa national versus a green card holder, is it difficult for an American national to become a U.S. citizen, or does it pretty much, if they apply, they will get it? Or do we know?
I mean, I would say I don't know. I do think that we can find the people that do know and have a position to take on that, who may be able to report back to council and provide that information. But I would not feel comfortable talking about the process at that level. Richard, do you feel comfortable delving into that?
No, I do not. I apologize. I'm not an immigration attorney, and I would hate to steer the council in that direction.
Yeah, same. I mean, I would just hate to misstate something, but I will say from everything that council's saying, another option that council has is to direct the mayor and the attorneys, or the city manager and the attorneys, to draft a letter of support that reflects some of the, some of the thoughts that council has expressed, and to send that to, I'm not sure where we would send that. So, I mean, but that's an option. We're looking at a resolution. So council's options are to approve it, amend it, and approve it with amendments, deny it, or direct us to take another course of action, which council's done before, in sort of a letter of support realm. So just trying to throw some options out.
Tom?
So I'm going to just put this bluntly. I think this resolution is a big nothing burger. I don't think it's actually helping the Samoan community. I agree with what Holly just said. I think we could do better. And I think we need to sit down at the drawing table again and come up with something that actually helps. This appears like we're helping, but I don't think it is. And I think we're way out of our lane.
So I have an American Samoan Whittier resident that would like to comment on this, and I'd ask council to relax the rules. I think it's important to have input from individuals that are directly affected by this resolution.
And Mayor, I just want to add that I think that individual would like to call in. And so we do have a capability for that to be happening at that dais if the council does move to relax the rules.
So
I'm good with it. Do we have to vote on it?
The mayor could ask for objection, and if there is no objection, then the motion can be passed with no objection.
No objection.
all right.
But Mr. Mayor, you would want to just formally give opportunity for any council member to object.
Pardon?
So you don't have to go through the whole motions of saying first, second, and then voting, but you do still need to give the council an opportunity to object to relaxing the rules. So just a statement of, is there any objection? Pause, and then.
Are there any objections to relaxing the rules on this behalf? So you guys have the phone number of Michael?
There is a person in the audience that has him on the telephone. Go
We
ahead and
could-
come on up.
This is fine. Okay, good morning. Yep.
Hello?
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for the chance. My name is Michael Pesse. I am a Alaska certified firefighter 1, firefighter 2. For past years, I've been volunteering my time, non-paid time, to serve this community, just to answer some of the questions and confusion that the council have. So the green card process, Mr. Denmark, it's the same process that we U.S. national have to go through. It's the same for immigrant to go get their green card, to get U.S. citizenship. It's the same amount, same process, same wait time. It's confusing and saddened to see, because for 125 years, the U.S. flag has been flown on our island. Even the Commander-in-Chief, President Trump, a couple weeks ago mentioned that. But U.S. nationals pay the same taxes. Councilman Wagner and Dickinson and everyone on the council pays the same. I pay the same property taxes we have a Social Security card, and for us to register at the age of 18 to serve for the U.S. military. I forgot the thing that we have to register for. It's and for us to not have a voice, in these kind of things, it's really sad to hear. And I really love this community. We've been nothing but supportive of this community. We call it our home, and the fact that some of the folks here that initiated this raid, and I'm not going to name any names on here, but I really do love and see everyone supporting this. Just to clarify things as well, that we're not immigrants. Well, we don't need a green card to enter the U.S. We've been a U.S. territory, a jurisdiction of the United States of America for 125 years, way longer than the state of Alaska has been a state. But I'm gonna say I'm still proud to be a U.S. national, and you know, it's really sad to see that we've been targeted and rated like this when all my years of putting volunteer fire service and EMS services for the community of Whittier. And I see some people here too in this council room that I've responded to and helped. And this is the pushback we got, you know. But I really do hope that we could see some kind or some type of support from you guys. But just wanted to clarify that, you know, we're not immigrants. We're not illegal immigrants. We didn't come to America illegally. We came here with U.S. passports. We have social security numbers. And if America goes to war, we get drafted, but we can't vote. We don't have a voice. Isn't this the same thing that there was a American Revolutionary War back then because of taxation without any representation? I pay my property taxes in Whittier. My mom does. My brothers, my sister does. We pay the same sales taxes and everything. We get taxed in the W-2s and everything. But we can't have a voice to elect our officials here in the city of Whittier. That's really sad and kind of ridiculous hearing some of the things that some of the council members have mentioned. I know I'm speaking emotionally, but this is from a U.S. national who spent most of his time serving this community. So, I thank you guys for your time. I hope that clarifies it. The struggle, the pain that we're going through in this process, being targeted. I'm not sure if you guys know that my mom also is in the hospital, stressed over this stuff, but that's the fruits of what some of these individuals that initiated this call, that started targeting U.S. nationals here. We're not Samoans. We are American Samoans. The name of the island is literally American Samoa. And it's been that for 125 years. And it's sad to see that some of you guys are building cases against the, I don't like the term of Samoans in Whittier. That's the community of Whittier.
Well, thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
So, one of the things that is confusing for an individual that is an American, a fellow American, is when they were on the American Samoan island, they voted. They sent delegations. They used they basically got a passport. They traveled to Alaska just because they're a fellow American. And the distinction between being able to vote and not vote and file a PFD and all of a sudden get a voter registration card arrive in the mail, it's confusing for me. And I was born in Oklahoma. So they are fellow Americans. Holly, I'd like this resolution as it stands, there's concern among council members of possible blowback. I mean, one of the reasons why I had you help me with this is to steer clear of blowback. And in that, what we're basically stating is, as a community, we support our fellow Americans that are in a situation of unintended consequences. And if you could just state what our potential, there seems to be concern that we may be either stepping out of our our role as council members of the city of Whittier and or face possible blowback. Could you please address that?
I mean, I will try. And this is, and the reason why I say try is because council is stepping outside its standard authority, right? Council makes decisions based on the code. It makes decisions regarding the legislations for the city of Whittier. However, council's position on governing constitutional and state law is certainly appropriate. It's appropriate for the city to state a support for a law. It may be a law that impacts how you operate your port or how taxation rolls out for municipalities, or what's up with the benefits, municipal, benefits, and how that plays out. And there's all kinds of things that the city of Whittier appropriately communicates support or prioritization for on the state level. So there's lots of resolutions that as a lawyer, I cringe a little bit when I see my councils put forward. And that would be a resolution that took a position on an active investigation and whether or not that was, and any sort of facts and circumstances surrounding the investigation, right? That is not something that, an investigation that's not within council's authority. That would make me nervous. Resolutions where you take a position on a federal issue that does not impact the community. So if this resolution was designed to impact federal elections as opposed to state and local elections, I would probably have some heartburn over that because there's exposure when we step outside of our authority. So you are putting a resolution forward that impacts laws that you don't have the ability to change. But this resolution goes on, the only thing it does is express Whittier's support for an amendment to those laws in the if those laws are taken up by the appropriate bodies. So as far as blowback, I mean, I can't really speak to that in the legal sense. This resolution does not criticize or direct any other body's conduct in the election realm. It simply expresses the support of Whittier. So I think you're on solid ground in that manner, Mayor, does that answer your question?
I thank you for helping clarify. Dave?
I don't know that I really see blowback. And with what Richard said, I mean, it even clarifies the part of we're not asking for just Whittier, we're asking for all cities within the state, they be allowed to vote. And with what Richard said, that, the law basically has been for federal government. So maybe is it more appropriate to go down that path of rather than asking for being able to vote in federal elections, just to keep it that narrow focus because of what he said about their rights of keeping, the 14th Amendment wouldn't apply. So it almost seems more appropriate. On the other hand, I think there's other things we can do. And I mentioned amendment. I don't think we need to do amendment, but I wouldn't mind seeing what else can be done to help the present situation. This doesn't really need to be it's not going to help the immediate situation. So it's kind of a future thing. But on the other hand, I don't have a problem with it. I think as far as asking for the information on the raid, I don't think we're ever going to get anywhere on that. I think you can't get, the Epstein files still aren't released. How are we going to get this? So I think but anyway, with that one part removed and with what Richard said about it, that basically the law kind of stipulates federal, I think it's probably is appropriate for us to suggest that the state of Alaska revise the Constitution to allow U.S. nationals with clear wording. The bill HB 69 or 19, I'm going to ask Holly. That
bill goes the other way.
It doesn't make any sense to me.
No. So
That goes the other way?
I'm sorry if I'm interrupting.
No.
But that bill that Holly references is from a legislature who wants to reaffirm the difference between citizenship and being a national. So what we would be espousing would be contrary to that, that Alaska should pass legislation allowing American Samoan nationals to vote in state and local elections rather than prohibit them from doing so. Now, and Tom, you were a little concerned that this resolution didn't have any meat to it. And to whatever degree that's true, but that recommendation as a function of this resolution would at least carry an action plan. And you know as well as I do how slowly government works on the local level, let alone the state and federal. But I would like to see us recommending to the legislature, the governor, or whoever would have some purview to consider changing that law to allow American Samoan nationals the same rights, voting rights as citizens. And anyway, the resolution is not specific to that, but that might offer it the thrust that you're looking for.
Somewhat. I think that it would not be undermining the original treaty because, as you had stated, there are states that allow local participation, so it's not unique. But yeah, this doesn't really state that. And I think without getting into the specifics of something that is actually attainable, we're wasting our time and we're wasting the community's time by asking for something that's not going to happen. I would rather ask for something that we can actually do. I just think this needs to be rewritten. And no, I'm just going to leave it at that. I don't want to be here forever.
So all we're trying to do here is we're just aspiring to make a meaningful statement in support of the American Samoan community in Whittier and statewide. This would not be relegated to a Whittier issue. And I think that the voting rights as difference in voting rights for nationals and citizens, I don't think that is a meaningless statement to make to the state government. It has to start somewhere. And this circumstance, we have managed to make a mountain out of what should have been a molehill. And it shouldn't be that hard to come up with that statement. And if we need to rewrite the resolution, I would like to see that incorporated into this. And what I would reiterate is that clause that we did already removed from the agenda. If we added the language that we hope that our local citizens, American Samoan citizens, would not be precluded from following the citizenship path or voting rights in the future. And I don't think it would be out of hand to offer both of those to whoever might be listening.
So one of the options may be to continue consideration or deliberation of this resolution to a part. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Mary, I don't mean to interrupt you. You know, I'm sitting over here trying to brainstorm everything, and there's a part of me that wants to remind you that as a council, you don't have to approve this resolution, and you can direct your administration to draft that letter of support in which you are all sort of leaning towards, it feels like, and we can do that. You have the ability to say we don't like this resolution as it stands, but we want a letter of support. You know, maybe whether that's drafted just by your administration off of this meeting tonight and the input from the public, I think that we have, a large portion of the community that agrees that the support needs to come from us and the show of that support, but maybe it's not in a resolution form. And that's just my opinion.
I would like to see this go forward as a resolution, as a function of official city business, because it has become a significant issue in our community, as we've heard from a number of people. So the letter of support acknowledging that which has been discussed here tonight in a resolution form, I think would be most powerful.
Councilmember Denmark, one thing you could do as well is if council passes the resolution, well, it could amend the resolution to direct the city manager to draft a letter of support regarding the comments you've made about ensuring that, or encouraging, I'm going to scratch that, requesting that any penalty does not preclude their participation in the voting process. You could just amend it to direct the city manager to draft a letter of support expressing that request by council. So
Where
then
would that
you
letter
pass
of
your resolution, but then you also get that letter that's more pointed to that issue of we'd like our community members to be.
It would be a separate document.
So it would be just that piece. And it would probably, what I'm guessing would happen is it would be a letter of support with a copy of the resolution that you passed, and then a statement saying council has also directed administration to express its support for, or its request that any penalty imposed does not preclude obtaining voting status in our local elections.
Okay, instead of
Something
be
like
a
that.
bigger pest, why can't that language be plugged into clause number 6 of the resolution?
We can do that, but I would ask that you take a 5-minute recess so that administration and Richard and I can all put our heads together and get some language that isn't rushed.
Before we do that, Mr. Pincush has a statement.
Yeah, just while you're doing that, I think they're separate matters. And I think we should break it apart and make it simpler, because the letter we're going to is going to go to the prosecuting attorney and the judges, not to the governor. So I think it should be completely separate. It can be a resolution versus a letter, but I think it doesn't need to be this. This is addressing future changes and that's addressing today. And I think we should keep them separate. It's just going to confuse people.
I have concern on the timing of the support in terms of, you're worried about ramifications. Those ramifications will be decided. The timing of when we would put, in our concern would be, I think it would be important, because we don't want to influence the outcome of the proceedings. Victor.
I mean, listening to this banter we have going back and forth, and it seems like
Victor,
I'd make-
we're not having a banter.
we're having a discussion.
Okay.
So I think I want to make a motion to table this resolution, definitely draft a letter, and then let's draft another resolution that would be cleaner, as Mr. Pincush says. Instead of trying to come up with something here in 5 minutes.
I would second that motion.
Yeah, I would like to add some things in here too that would be more proactive to, in case this completely falls flat, the way it's written, that we have a plan B on something that's actually going to help. Yeah.
I think we're closer than we think here.
Anyway, the motion's been made. Let's
Mayor?
to table.
I just want to say, I think Councilmember Pincush's thought process of separating the two so that you have the sort of your statement on legislation and constitutional law remains it's not, it goes to the elections and that election process, both, in the city of Whittier and on the state of Alaska. And then if you direct a letter of support, that letter of support can incorporate both the removed subsection from this resolution, if council prefers, and that other matter, to the extent, and you could even do that outside. You don't need to do that in the resolution. You can move that the administration prepare that letter and bring it back to council for council's approval, basically approving that the letter goes out. So you don't have to use the resolution to take action. You can take action with the resolution, which Councilmember Denmark goes to, I think, that more broad-based public interest that you're speaking to, more long-term, and then direct the preparation of a letter of support for review. So just to weigh in before you, just to fully muddy the waters before you jump in.
Victor has made a motion, so I think it takes priority. Is that right? Okay, so let's vote unless we have further discussion.
I do. So the intention to table is to,
Indefinitely.
indefinitely doesn't, yeah, but it's to, so we all have opportunity to tweak it, basically. We're not trying to get rid of it. Is it, is that what, I think if we have short resolutions on single subjects, we're going to be way better off. If we want a resolution about the getting the information from the state troopers, that should be separate from the one that we want to send to the legislature to suggest that they consider amending the Constitution, and then one to support making sure that that the courts don't do things. To me, those are all three different things, and it would be a lot cleaner and easier. And one thing I'll comment to that is, when Governor Dunleavy was the senator, he was in the other building, and I brought him this 3-page document about fishing. And he said, you need to take this from 3 pages to 3 words if you want anybody to read it.
And to that, David, we don't have to kill this completely. We could cut this down as a show of support for American Samoa community members, and to make that the first page. Okay, we don't have to, in other words, you're saying we have 3 things in this resolution. So,
Well, we have 2 now,
okay, but,
if we want. But I think we should make it 3 resolutions instead of.
right, but we could take this one and chop it down to 1. So let's vote on Victor's motion to table.
Mayor, before you do that, I would just like to say the city manager has gone through the whereas clauses and can give you the alternative that amends it to just take out all of those. So
I know you're voting on a motion and amendment, but if you amend this resolution, in this way, removing lines 25 through 40, which are whereases that mention approximate dates and things that have happened, and then remove lines 44 through 50, this would make a resolution that is just recommending that the legislature look at amending the voter law. Like that's what this would read as. So that would be the resolution. If you were to amend it that way, that this resolution would read that we support that the legislature look at amending the voter law, and it would pull those apart, just like Councilmember Pencush stated.
Yeah, because those are still.
51 through
Yes.
97.
Yes, because
Yes.
those are just saying that you're reaffirming your support for equal voting rights in state and local elections for all residents who are citizens of the United States or its territories, including those born in American Samoa. And then you go in with what is in essence a 5-word change, right, to both. Now, I'm not saying it's a small change, but I'm saying that that's all that's reflected. So it really does. And then that in essence tables the issue, as Councilmember Shin was saying, the issue that that may, whether you do a letter of support or a resolution or, however that is formatted, it sort of gives council more time with those provisions. If that's, and again, these are just options, but we wanted to express those options before you tabled.
Okay, so we still have Victor's motion to, unless they want to withdraw. So
What is the motion? To table it indefinitely.
Because we're taking it apart so much, I feel like it's a completely different resolution. I mean, it's not. But it's going to be breaking it apart, and so this resolution is not going to come back in this form. It's going to come back and broken up in a more straightforward form.
Half of the verbiage here and go directly.
we've got something on the table here. Let's go ahead. Victor made that resolution. Let's make our vote. So
It's a question for the attorneys. You think that taking out that section that the city manager recommended would streamline it?
Yeah, I reviewed it as she sort of went through, and it's clean. I mean, as far as, from an attorney's perspective, you have your subject. Each of the other whereas clauses supports the therefore be it resolved section of the resolution. So in that sense, I think it's streamlined.
It is pointed.
So there's nothing left of the nothing burger.
No, it's not at all, Tom.
let's Victor, are you
Vote on the
gonna
motion.
make the motion or not?
Yeah, you give me a moment to think here.
You took it off the table?
No, give me a moment here. I got another question for the attorney, I guess. Holly. Also, by streamlining it, does this help, I guess, by streamlining it in this manner, does it help us address some of those concerns we might have
I
by
think it's,
conglomerating all these points together?
I think this is helpful to the extent that you're expressing as a community the changes you want to see in the voting laws. I think that to the extent you want to support or you want to address the events that happened in Whittier on September 5th and concerns or public records requests or to impact any or to express concerns regarding sentencing, any of those things, I think that's now completely outside the scope of this resolution. It doesn't mean that it won't, be helpful in some sense, but the city council, the city of Whittier is speaking to, they are acting within the law and speaking to changes they'd like to see in the law. To the extent you want a letter of support that incorporates the rest of these resolution whereas clauses and addresses the issue, a more specified issue, then I would recommend either a council member can sponsor another resolution, and so you would, as Councilmember Pincush was saying, just sort of have a separate resolution. I think Councilmember Denmark also commented on that, so you may have some council members willing to support that, or you can simply direct the administration to prepare a letter of support for council's review at its next meeting. Or to send a letter of support that expresses the positions and concerns expressed by council. Or a letter of support that incorporates the statements in this letter, as well as a request that that future voting rights are not impacted by, past conduct. So lots of options in that sense.
I don't do well. All right. I remember last time that happened. No, no withdrawal. I do not withdraw my motion.
Mr. Mayor, are you ready to vote on the
Think,
motion to table indefinitely?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Voting
I
on
would
the
like more
mo-
time.
I'm sorry? Okay. Voting on the motion to table resolution 2025-020 indefinitely. Mr. Shen,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
No.
Mr. Wagner,
Yes.
Mr. Denmark,
No.
Mr. Pinkush,
No.
Mr. McAlto,
No.
Mr. Mayor.
No.
The motion fails 2-5, and resolution 2025-020 as amended is not tabled. Returning again to the motion to approve resolution 2025-020 as amended.
Madam Clerk, do we haven't voted on making those amendments yet, have we?
No, I haven't.
So,
No, no motion was made because you were considering the motion to table. Now that that motion has been settled, we've returned to the motion to approve the resolution. So now would be the right time to offer those amendments that were discussed.
I'll make a motion to make those amendments suggested by our attorney and city manager.
Second.
Hearing further discussion?
Please delineate those changes one more time. Yeah. I'd like to get specific. Yeah, I want to get specific about the lines. It was discussed lines 25 through 40, and then also 41 through 50, I believe.
No, that'd be 44 through 50.
25
Okay.
to what?
So to confirm, it'd be lines 25 through 40. And then then lines 44 through 50.
All right. And then one other proposed change in the title of the resolution. It reads, encouraging voting rights for citizens of the United States and U.S. territories, including but not limited to American Samoa. Shouldn't that not read nationals instead of citizens?
Because they are citizens of a U.S. territory. They are citizens of the American Samoa. So,
Okay,
and
but
they
it's-
have not abdicated their citizenship. So I think that, as far as, we're not saying, we're saying is you have to be a U.S. citizen or a citizen of one of its territories. So we are, the U.S. nationals qualifies their relationship with the U.S. It's the citizen of the territory so we're not requiring them to be nationals of the U.S. We're requiring them to be a citizen of the U.S. or a citizen of a U.S. territory. So it's
Okay,
the
but
correct
the
language.
distinction with American Samoans is nationals, right? And that's now the thrust of the entire resolution.
No, there's no distinction. They are citizens of American Samoa. the distinction is whether or not, as a citizen of the American Samoa, you are also a U.S. citizen for purposes of voting, or whether you have non-citizen national status, right? So I think that, and if I'm saying something wrong, Richard, please jump in. But I think we have U.S., so you have citizen nationals and non-citizen nationals in essence. It's, and that is, so being a citizen of the U.S. or its territories is saying you can be a citizen of the United States, which is a U.S. citizen process that, that you have to go through, or you can be a citizen of a U.S. territory.
So
So it's a correct language as far as I'm concerned, but one of the,
there is yet a third one, and that is to be a U.S. citizen and from the U.S. territories.
that's okay. They'll be voting
But-
as a U.S. citizen, and if this were to pass, they could also vote under their
That it-
status as a,
For
so,
us lay people, it might read better rights for citizens and nationals of the United States and U.S. territories.
I think that you leave open discussions regarding national status and you increase the amount of words that you place in the recommended legislation. I think it's best to add as little as you can. And by simply saying citizens of the U.S. or its territories, you are keeping the request as tight as possible. So to the extent that the legislature wants to change those words, which they always have, they will. So I guess what I would say is this is a very direct, accurate statement. And the language is very clean. To the extent that the legislature decides to take up the change, they understand the purpose of the resolution proposed by the city. If they want to change the terms, I think that's certainly within their purview, and I'm sure they will have debates on that front.
So the question is the national status unique to American Samoa, or are there other U.S. territories where that status also applies?
So that's a good question. I mean, and I'll turn to Richard on this if I mess this up. But in essence, the other citizens of U.S. territories were, as a matter of agreement, given the right to participate in and to vote in elections, and were given U.S. citizen status.
Yes.
So they are,
So they're
US
not really
citizens, but we
relevant to
don't-
this resolution.
but we don't know what happens tomorrow. We don't know what agreements are made. So I think the resolution is simply saying expand the scope. It's not asking to call out a particular U.S. national group. It's just saying U.S. citizens or its territories. So if you wanted to be specific and come up with language specific to American Samoa, I think that would be harder for us to craft and to propose. I think this language is very simple and it covers everybody. And so instead of trying to be more specific in a manner that may not cover everybody, this is very clean and it covers everybody.
Who else needs to be covered?
Well, that is not a debate we need to have, right? I don't think anybody, but you don't
Exactly. So
know.
why go there?
We don't know that we won't have another territory. We don't know what's coming in the future. We don't know what's happening in the
We're not worried about
past.
that today. This is specific to this issue in our community and in Alaska.
So the language that we propose, so we can rework it, but it was proposed to cover U.S. citizens and citizens of U.S. territories. All of them, whoever they might be. It's saying that, if they are residents of Whittier and they are citizens of the U.S. or its territories, the city of Whittier is requesting a change to state law to allow them to participate in the elections. It's not specific to, it also expresses support for the American Samoan community, but that is the language here. If the council doesn't want to go that far, then we might want to hold off on the resolution and change
Now,
the
can I get in
language.
trouble for saying I'm not really worried about people from any of the other territories?
No, but I think that's fine to say, but I think what this does is it presents a very direct, clear, accurate, least amount of words possible, all-inclusive approach. If you want to take a more specific, specified approach that's specific to the American Samoan community,
That's
then
what I was trying to accomplish here. I think it is, to Mr. Wagner's point, that's kind of watered down.
but it covers everybody. It covers the community members, the U.S. nationals that you are trying to cover. It covers them in the way that you are trying to cover them. So, and it looks like there is another, the Northern Mariana Islands. So there we go. We got another, and I don't know that. So I guess what I would say is this covers all U.S. nationals, citizens of U.S. territories. If you want to restrict it to one group, I feel like council should really look over the resolution, and perhaps it is best to postpone it, because then you are singling out one group of citizens of a
bad.
U.S. national to include in the vote and maybe to exclude others. And that is a different discussion, and whether or not the resolution, is appropriate, if that's the discussion, is a different discussion, right?
I
Because
favor
this is
inclusivity.
all inclusive.
Mr. Pincus is,
Yeah, so you want it shotgun. And one of the things you said that might be confusing Dan, but what about changing it to this? A resolution of the City Council of the City of Whittier, Alaska, encouraging voting rights for citizens of the United States and citizens of U.S. territories in state of Alaska and local elections. Don't even add in U.S. and citizens of U.S. territories so that we understand it, citizens of U.S. territories, instead of having to think it through, and then just eliminate the part about including but not limited to American Samoa. Why would, if we should be broad as we can, why would we even put that?
No, this is the only change to the law. It currently says every citizen of the United States who is at least 18 years of age, who meets registration,
Right.
residency requirements, yada, yada,
Yeah,
right?
we're talking about that.
All it says is every citizen of the United States or territory of the United States who is at least 18 years of age, who meets registration, residency requirements, yada, yada. And the next one is a person may vote at any election who, and this is in our statute, so it's talking about states and it's talking about state and local elections. A person may vote at any election
Yeah, I
who, one, is a citizen of the United States or a territory of the United States. Those are the only sentences we are putting forward as a recommendation.
I know, but I thought we were talking about line 7 through 10. So
Oh, are we talking about a different part? That might explain. Okay, so line 7 through 10, the title?
Yeah.
Okay, so are you saying,
I'm saying add the words for citizens of the United States and citizens of U.S. territories. That way there's,
okay, so you want to add citizens to the title. Okay, I have no problem with that whatsoever. And my only, Councilmember Pincus, do you also want to remove including but not limited to American Samoa?
well, from what you said, it would seem like the right thing to do.
I will just add that as your city manager, I am the one who added that line, because when this initially started, it was a letter of support showing that we supported what was happening, and I wanted to make sure that the America Samoa was in the title. I am the one who added that, so I wanted it to read
Either
it. But I just wanted to say, I'm the one who did it. It wasn't your legal, it was me.
Well, we have it down below, so it doesn't matter to me. I mean, it's what she said. If we want to be generic on that, then it would be appropriate to just say citizens of U.S. territory.
So I think there's two choices there. I mean, I think I have no problem with either. I mean, you can add citizens before after and before US, and either keep or
What do you think about
remove. It doesn't change the meaning, so.
I'm,
How about adding citizens of U.S. territory? So it's very, I mean, it's in there, but that makes it even more clear. Because you were talking about nationals, and this clarifies citizens of U.S. territories, which they are.
That makes its own distinction.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I get it. You want to make that change, that's fine, but even the way it reads, given the legal explanation and Jackie's motivation, I do not have a problem with that. All right.
So
So is it safe saying that you would like to amend the title, line 9, by adding the word citizen before the word, or before the abbreviation, citizens before the word US?
Citizens of.
Citizens of,
Citizens of, to line 9,
to line 9.
just,
Citizens of U.S. territories.
Mhm.
So just for procedural sake, so Mr. Pincush, you are amending you're offering a motion to
I'm-
amend the amendment by inserting into the amendment and inserting citizens of before U.S. territories in line 9.
correct.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
I'll call for the vote.
Voting on the motion to amend the amendment by inserting citizens of before U.S. territories in line 9. Mr. Pincush,
Yes.
Mr. Wagner,
Yes.
Mr. McAlto,
Yes.
Mr. Denmark,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Shen,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
The motion to amend the amendment passes. Now, the amendment reads, strike lines 25 through 40 and lines 44 through 50, and insert citizens of before U.S. territories in line 9 in Resolution 2025-020 as amended.
What about 85 through 92?
Oh, that would need, okay, yeah, sorry.
Did we finish that? We got that all amended?
Yep, so now
Okay.
we've returned to the discussion on the amendment. We amended the amendment, is what we just did. So you added the title change into your
Okay.
original amendment to also remove those certain lines.
Okay.
So now you would be voting on the amendment as amended to amend the resolution.
That's so awesome.
If you could just give me one moment to catch up with my written version, I would be greatly appreciative. Okay. Mr. Mayor, were you ready for the vote?
Okay. I'd like to make one more motion to amend. On line 16, where it says treatment of some territorial residents, change it to treatment of some U.S. territorial residents.
Mr. Pincush, could I ask that you repeat that?
Yep, line 16, change, add U.S. before territorial. So it says treatment of some U.S. territorial residents instead of just treatment of some territorial residents. Also on line 80, same thing. Emphasize the
You
U.S.
may want to say too, if we're going to do that, maybe some U.S. territorial residents of Whittier. Because resident status goes, that's what they're Whittier residents. That's the qualifier for residency. Residency, we're talking about where people live and intend to live and want to live, right? So if it's some U.S. territorial residents and then of Whittier.
I like the Whittier. Yeah, I had it in the other one, but we removed it.
Or of Alaska.
I did. I was helping.
If no one seconded it, I'll second it.
Do we have a second?
Mayor, I do want to check in with Richard because I said a lot of things about definitions for citizenship and nationalism and our national status. Richard, did I say anything that gave you pause?
No, you did not.
Oh, look at that. I did not.
Mr. Mayor, could I read the motion? Just for
Please.
clarity's sake. Okay, thank you. So the motion is to amend the amendment by inserting add US before territorial on lines 16 and 80 and of Whittier after residence on lines 17 and 80. Okay, okay. Did you want to have further discussion or were you ready for the vote?
I think we are all ready. No, line 17.
Okay. Voting on the motion to amend the amendment by inserting add US before territorial on lines 16 and 80 and of Whittier after residence on lines 17 and 80. Mr. Pincush,
Yes.
Mr. Wagner,
Yes.
Mr. McCulto,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Shen,
Yes.
Mr. Denmark,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
The motion to amend the amendment passes. The amendment now reads, strike lines 25 through 40 and lines 44 through 50, and inserting citizens before U.S. territories in line 9, and adding U.S. before territorial on lines 16 and 80, and of Whittier after residence on lines 17 and 80 in Resolution 2025-020 as amended.
The only thing I would say is there was an addition of U.S. territorial on line 80 that, oh, never mind. It's fine. Never mind. I'm fine.
You are ready for the vote on the amendment? Okay. Now, we are voting on the amendment to strike lines 25 through 40 and lines 44 through 50, and inserting citizens before U.S. territories in line 9, and adding U.S. before territorial on lines 16 and 80, and of Whittier after residence on lines 17 and 80. Mr. Shen,
Yes.
Mr. Wagner,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Denmark,
Yes.
Mr. McCulto,
Yes.
Mr. Pincush,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
The motion to amend passes, and we are now returning to approving resolution 2025-020 as amended.
Discussion?
So I just want to say, now that this has been hacked to bits, my original objection still stands. Whatever substance that this may have had, it has even less now. And I agree with Victor that we should have put a pause on this and redone this. This needs something proactive in it. If this doesn't go forward, or it takes 100 years for something to happen, we don't have nothing.
We have
It's political theater.
the opportunity to provide support of the American Samoan community in Whittier. And given the recent events that have happened, I greatly appreciate that we have that opportunity.
I get it, Mr. Mayor, but I think there is a better way.
I call
to
for
do
a
it.
vote. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Peter.
I would ask Counselor Wagner what stronger language or what you would propose.
I don't know.
Okay.
Lots of changes in between. Okay. We are now voting to approve Resolution 2025-020, a resolution encouraging voting rights for citizens of the United States and citizens of U.S. territories, including but not limited to American Samoa, in state of Alaska and local elections as amended. Mr. Denmark,
Yes.
Mr. Pinkush,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. McAlto,
Yes.
Mr. Wagner,
No.
Mr. Shen,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
The motion passes 6-1, and Resolution 2025-020 as amended is approved.
Mayor, before you move on to the next, I just want to remind council that you can also request for the letter of support that you spoke about, and that you could ask for that to also be brought forward at your next meeting. However you would like, we will do our best.
We'll address that during council comments. And
Mayor,
Go-
so I would not address it through council comments. And the only reason why is I encourage you to use your council comments for things that don't require, that you're not going to move for. And given the nature of given the nature of this issue surrounding the resolution, I would recommend that you move to, because there's different, move to direct your city manager to,
So-
if that's what council wants to do, and then vote on whether or not you're going to direct her as a council to take those steps. So that would be,
So I need a little clarification. We just voted on a resolution, and you're saying before we move on, we can make another move on this subject?
yes, because you've kind of bifurcated it, right? You've had a resolution, you voted on the resolution, now you're taking action. You're making a motion
Okay.
to direct, and that's sort of, it's part of the,
Okay, so
Yeah.
there may be two components of this. One would be a letter of support, and the other would be, there seemed to be too much in the previous resolution that,
Okay.
go ahead.
So the resolution we just passed, who does this forward to from here? Do we send it to our legislature? Do we send it to the governor?
It's in the resolution.
Okay, so this will be sent to our lawmakers, right? And the letter of support should be sent to maybe the same people and the law enforcers.
I guess, and you don't even have to identify that. You can say to distribute the letter of support, as she deems
We're
fit.
hoping somebody reads it, right? And I'm just
Yeah.
wondering who may be targeted recipients.
So right now, the resolution is going to the Department of Public Safety, the Alaska Department of Law, the governor, the Alaska legislature, and other relevant government entities. You could make a motion to direct the city manager to draft a letter of support that expresses the opinions and support discussed by council. I actually think the minutes here provides enough direction, and to remit that letter of support to the Alaska Department of Public Safety and the Alaska Department of Law. And I think that by doing so, you and any member of the public and the public. So by putting that letter on the city website or putting it somewhere, or making it available to the public at city offices, that sort of, yeah.
You do have citizens that have asked for a letter of support from council. And so in my mind, if I'm directed to do so, then they would also receive that letter so that they could use it for their purposes.
Very good. Thank you.
And a letter of support is a matter of public record. It's a public record. So really just, I don't know that you have to identify where it goes. So long as it's drafted from council, it can be distributed as needed.
So I'd ask for a motion for this letter.
I'll second.
I will definitely need a little bit more clarification about exactly what that motion says. I can read you what I have captured, and then you can tell me if it's close. Does that work? Okay. So what I have is a motion to direct administration to draft a letter of support that expresses council's desire that any penalty would not preclude participation in local elections, and remit that letter of support to Alaska Department of Public Safety, Department of Law, and to the public.
It would not preclude them from attaining citizenship. U.S. citizenship.
Only the citizenship, not the participation in local elections, or both? Both?
If you have U.S. citizenship, you have
Yeah,
everything.
if you get the citizenship, you can vote.
That's the-
Well,
You know, maybe it is appropriate because of what happened. Because that might be a penalty.
yeah. So, citizenship, path, and voting rights. Yeah.
So then it would read, apologies, direct administration to draft a letter of support that expresses council's request that any penalty would not preclude participation in local elections or in attaining citizenship, and remit that letter.
So I think that you can take that and you can craft on that. You've got the general idea. So if council would be willing to let Jackie work her wordsmith talents, that would, I think she's going to bring it back before us to approve. I think that we don't want to get it. Does that sound good?
That's the gist of it. And
Mr. Denmark, microphone.
and whatever language that was removed from the resolution that may be appropriate as backup to that is, some of it's right there.
So this motion should either say, subject to approval by council at the end, or not say anything regarding approval by council. So without that approval by council language at the end, you're directing the city manager or the administration to go forward and send that letter. You're not expecting to see it back. If you say, subject to approval of council, you're asking to see a copy of that letter before it goes out at your next meeting, and would then vote on it again.
Yes, we should vote on. And question for council, I guess, too. Do we want to put as part of our concerns for them, the restriction for citizenship, part of that is that many of us were confused about the situation. Just put that in there. I don't know if it's needed, or I don't want to muddy it up, but
No, and I
there
think,
was huge amount of confusion. I mean, it goes way back. We unknowingly have been ignorant for years.
and I think that's,
I think that'd be part of what our letter of support's about, is that we were just as confused as anybody else.
I think there's the problem, and it's not necessarily a problem, but one of the things, and we can work with the administration on wording this, the clerk's office has actually had occasion on which to, and I think most of these issues arose before your tenure, but has had an occasion to look at residency and the impact on, and questions were raised regarding citizenship and the scope of that. And those answers, so there was no confusion as to the scope of citizenship or the requirement of citizenship. I think that it's really, but that's on a administrator of the elections front. I don't think the city has had confusion. It's just been outside the city's role. They're usually looking at the state register. If a person's on it, they cast a ballot. If they're not on it, they don't cast a ballot. So, but I think confusion as to individual council members as a body over time, I think that is worth mentioning. If that's something that you guys have been here a long time and a lot longer than us, I think it puts, that's something that is appropriate to say as to individual council members. But I think the city should make the differentiation between the administration and just the community.
So in addition to this, local lack of knowledge of how this was played out, there was also this automated process happening by the PFD in which it was automatically amending our voter rolls, which is a little frustrating. I don't think the state actually knew that was happening. I think it was basically a fallout of a statewide amendment that said, hey, anybody that registers for a PFD, you're going to be added to your voter roll without the knowledge of that we have American nationals.
I would like to add something. I'm going to take my city manager brain hat off for a minute, and I'm going to put my clerk hat back on. I want to make it really, really clear that as your clerk during elections, we don't choose who can and cannot vote. So if somebody came in and their name was not on the list, we would have then given them the ability to vote, but then it would have been put into a question ballot, and that ballot would have went to the state unless it's a city local election, right? But we follow the state law. We don't ever say you can't vote. So I just want to make sure that's like,
But we do reject question ballots.
yes, you reject question ballots, but we would never say you can't vote. Anybody that walks through the door that wants to vote, we give, if their name's on the list, you give them a ballot, even if their name's not on the list. But then, so I just want to make it really clear. Yes, the confusion is there. And I think that, hearing everything that's happened tonight, I can write a letter of support that states the confusion and the frustration as a community on what that we did our part, and and these things happened, but we ran our election by the law.
Well, and to be clear, if a question ballot is cast and they do not meet the qualifications of a voter in a local election, that ballot will be rejected. Similarly, if the ballot is filled out in a way that warrants rejection, that occurs too. And I just want to reiterate that the city local elections have been run very, very well and absolutely lawfully. And the council's discussion tonight is not a discussion about challenging the local election or federal, state, or local
Absolutely
election
not.
laws.
Absolutely not at all. I'm just saying the opportunity for that check that you just described, Holly, didn't happen because of a computer entry, It was the PFD thing. It was not, in other words,
Yes.
they got entered into the voting rolls.
Right. You're
without-
saying it impacted the state's registration list and who was registered, and they did not have to proactively register themselves or seek registration to vote, and that had an impact. And another thing for council to remember is the minutes of this meeting and the audio of this meeting will be available for people to revisit. So council members' concerns and the confusion, that's all something that is, it will be available to the extent it's helpful and if this issue becomes something that the state of Alaska is exploring, that's been memorialized in through the minutes as well.
Can I call for a vote?
After saying all that, it seems like just requesting that their future citizenship and voting rights is not affected might be cleaner, because this is probably going to come out in court anyway. So we would just be talking about something that's going to happen anyway. So it might be cleaner just to make a very clear statement, short, and it would have going to the Dunleavy 3-word thing. I keep coming back to is it might be just simpler, because all this is going to come out.
as administration puts this letter together, might it be appropriate to add a sentence, basically worded as you will? Any perceived offense was committed as a function of misunderstanding and without malice.
So what we cannot do is make presumptions regarding the facts in specific cases. We don't have the facts. And that is why the whereas clause originally in the resolution was stated as, to the extent there was not intent, we request, because we don't know, we just are, and I'm not saying that you don't know as members of the community and friends and family members of individuals that this involves. What I am saying is, as a body, as a governing body, at this stage, especially given that we have a public records request outstanding and a notice of appeal filed on that request for the city. Okay.
Could you state the motion?
Yes, the motion is to direct administration to draft a letter of support that expresses council's request that any penalty would not preclude participation in local elections or in attaining citizenship, and remit that letter of support to the Alaska Department of Public Safety, the Department of Law, and to the public, subject to council approval.
There is going to be support about the American Samoa Whittier residents. Okay.
Did you want to vote on that motion, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Okay. Voting on the motion, Mr. Denmark,
Yes.
Mr. McAlto,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Pinkush,
Yes.
Mr. Wagner,
Yes.
Mr. Shen,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
The motion passes and administration is directed to draft a letter subject to council approval.
We're to the point where we're going to set the date for the regular May meeting
And Board of Equalization.
and the Board of Equalization.
Mayor, your attorney's going to catch the tunnel, just so you know.
Please be safe.
Thank you.
On the screen.
Richard Moses.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Richard. Very good clarity.
So Mayor, next item on the agenda is at the last meeting and when we had a work session, we realized that our meeting was scheduled for the same date as the school's graduation ceremonies. And then at the same time, that is also the same date that we had for our Board of Equalization. So we are asking as administration so that we can support our students that are graduating, that we could possibly move the May 20th meeting to May 19th.
Sounds like a great date. Are there any council members that are not going to make that? Okay. So May 19th, Bureau of Board of, what time is that going to be?
So the Board of Equalization would start at 6 p.m. and then the regular meeting would start at 7. And just because there's also the Board of Equalization meeting as a part of this, I would ask that we do the whole rigmarole for making a motion and having a second and calling for the vote for this one.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Ready to vote, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Voting on the motion to reschedule the May regular meeting and Board of Equalization to May 19th. Mr. Wagner,
Yes.
Mr. McAlto,
Yes.
Mr. Pinkush,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Shen,
Yes.
Mr. Denmark,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
The motion passes, and the regular meeting and Board of Equalization is moved to May 19th.
Okay. Looks like we're moving to council comments. Dave?
Yep, just one to the city clerks. And any comments I made, there's no intention that the city clerks made a mistake. It's just the communities, American Samoans. We had no idea that, and if I encouraged anybody to vote, and I did, one person, and they declined. Maybe I should have taken a clue to that years ago. So I'm saying it's, I don't think people realized. I mean, I bet you give it random 100 people in the United States, say, can American Samoans vote? They're 80 people, 80% are going to say, of course. So it's kind of, I think that's where the confusion is. It's the community in it, and it's unfair. I mean, there's no question about it, but there was no intent that it's in the actual voting itself.
Okay, I'm not seeing any more council comments. Moving on to citizen discussion.
Mayor, while she's getting that, I just want to respond to Councilmember Pencush. I wasn't thinking it was that your question was directed at me. It was something that was said previous to that just sort of put a spin on a word on this level. So I just wanted to make sure that, that the community, if they played it back, could hear that we had done what we needed to, right?
Mr. Mayor, first on the sign up is Samuel Schilling.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Samuel Schilling. I'm originally from Moose Pass. I've lived here all my life. I'm president of the Chugach Backcountry Freeriders, a nonprofit representing the Eastern Kenai Peninsula. And we also represent different communities throughout the whole state. We're also a delegate of the Alaska Outdoor Council and along a representative for the Blue Ribbon Coalition down south and over 26 other organizations throughout the state. I'm here because we wanted to address some concerns over your guys' recent closures. We had numerous organizations that came up to us and wanted to address it with the city of Whittier. And we wanted to recap on a couple of the land acquisitions or conveyance of land in the area that was given over to the state, to the city of Whittier, that there was agreements that the city of Whittier was supposed to adhere to. And those are some of the things that we'd like to address. But we understand we got the opportunity to talk with Victor, and he relayed a lot of Whittier's concerns that they want to protect what you guys have here. And we wanted to bring ourselves and make ourselves known here that we have organizations that would like to support that effort in order to keep Whittier protected and sanctioned for all those that live here in Whittier. And we would like to offer our services to help with protecting that. But we also want to make sure that, we have a good compromise that works for both the motorized organizations like ourselves and along with the city of Whittier. So we have a natural understanding with each other and a co-op with each other to help that we can progress and make Whittier what it is. So we wanted to make ourselves present here with everybody so we can get familiar with names and the organizations. We realize a lot of outreach has been reached out to, like on social media, on Facebook groups and things of that nature. Those people do not represent organizations, and they cannot help you, and they don't uphold to their obligations of trying to help people in the community. We have numerous resources throughout the state and organizations that are willing to contribute into that and uphold to an agreement that we would have with such communities that we try to help out with. So we wanted to just make ourselves known and bring that up with the city of Whittier. So we have myself along with Lisa Agnew, that's also president of the Anchorage Snowmobile Club. That's another member that'll be addressing the topic for tonight. So thank you.
So we have, I want every member to be able to speak, but I might, in the response section, I might have some questions. Can I go ahead and do those now? Or
Can I get a business card before you leave?
Thank you for coming up here. We had a very, very low snow this year. I've been here for 31 years. This is probably the least amount of snow I've ever seen. I was able to blow all the snow with one tank of fuel this year, Water, basically the only reason why I can think of why we closed it is that when it gets low, we damage parts of the trail, and it creates problems for us. You know, if it happens very high up, then that damaged part continues to grow further down. And what I'd like to see is appropriate ways to communicate. Like, do we take photographs, and or it'd be even better because you guys have the machinery, is if you guys, or not just you, but whomever frequents this area, sort of self protects. You know, if they see these issues begin to happen, they take photos and be a little proactive, and or figure out a way to reroute your machine so that we can keep it open longer. I remember before they got too expensive, I used to ride up there, but anyway, I'm really open to dialogue and constructive, and I appreciate that your organization is open, and so please keep it in mind that we want some proactive solutions.
One of the biggest reasons we wanted to come here too is we also want to take accountability for our people, our groups that we have in our organization. If we have like motorized that's coming up here, and we had very good long conversation with Victor about the damage that was conducted up here when you have low snow seasons, and we want to take accountability of that, and we want to help and protect those to keep that from happening. So I know right now in the last instance there was trash down there. We're actually trying to track down those individuals as we speak, because we want to hold them accountable. It's a pretty good, tight community, and everybody knows everybody, and we want to address that so that way we can keep these access open continuously, and we want to build something continuously. So if there's issues like with the bridge that's up there that can damage, we know our carbines will damage wood, and we want to fix that, and we want to prevent that stuff from happening. And we do have organizations that can help contribute in, so it's not coming out of the city of Whittier's pocket.
Great, thank you.
Next on the list is Lisa Agnew.
Hello? Okay, good evening. I apologize for that. Some of this might be redundant to what Sam just said, but I'll introduce myself first. My name's Lisa Agnew. I serve as the president of the Anchorage Snowmobile Club. I'm also involved with the other variety of motorized groups across Alaska. I wanted to acknowledge that Whittier is a gem. It's one of the few places you could come here in the morning at the Lazy Otter, grab a coffee, run up the mountain, whatever activity you do, come back and go boating the same day. That kind of access is rare, and it's part of what makes this community so special to us, and I'm sure you guys also. I'm not here to cause any conflict. I'm actually here because you have my attention. Many of us recreate here, and we actually do care about what happens in Whittier, not just for ourselves, but for future generations, to include our kids. We've spoken with many users across South Central who deeply care about this place also, and they've also raised questions about the access recently. We're grateful that Victor from Parks and Rec met up with us last night, very impromptu, and dedicated a couple hours of his time to discuss trail access, recreational conflicts, and infrastructure issues. Some of the issues, like the bridge issue, we can help build another bridge that would be more durable for access for you guys. In addition, we heard that there was some frustration voiced over trash left behind, damage to the boardwalks, and disrespect from a few bad apples in the snow machine community. We take that very seriously. I would not want that in my own backyard. So we want to help promote stewardship, whether that's through better signage, outreach, or even sponsoring a few trail cams for you guys so that we can capture these guys and hold them accountable. Additionally, there's state resources that are available to support this effort. We briefly discussed about snow track funds that could be put towards a groomer operator and a groomer for you guys, their grooming operations. We'd like to help with that. So there's an opportunity to reduce the city's burden while also preserving access. We just want to open the door to ongoing communication, and we're here to collaborate, not to criticize, and we would be honored if we could be included in those conversations. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
No other citizens have signed in.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak? Okay.
Good evening, everyone. I'm not here to cause any trouble. I'm here to say on behalf of us, the individual that we were talking about earlier today, beginning of our meeting, I just wanted to say thank you all. Whether we have your support or not, we're still going to be here. We're still going to serve Whittier because that's what we love. And yeah, I just want to say thank you all for your support and mahalo.
Thank you, Becca. Okay, do we have any response here?
I would like to respond to the comments by Mr. Schilling, and I forgot your name, I'm sorry. I would love for you to reach out to us, and I always recommend and request that our Parks and Rec department is not a department, it is a volunteer committee. They meet once a month, and I would love for you to attend those meetings as well as any other meetings that we have. But for those purposes, you know, as the city manager, please reach out to us. You know, I think that, you know, though you talked to Victor last night, there was a letter that was sent out. We know that this letter was sent out, and it, you know, we would have loved to have met with you before it was sent to DNR.
Okay. Council is adjourned.